Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I've been asked a really interesting question by one of the viewers that has subscribed to the channel, and it was with regards to one of my recent videos, which is about a question I got asked about Reiki, and is it demonic, new age, all that sort of stuff. So I was discussing Reiki in that video, of which this question came from, and it was basically about how to deal with toxic positivity, and especially in the spiritual context, because there is a lot of that out there. There's not a lot of kind of like realism in regards to spirituality, and a lot of stuff gets fluffed up a little bit. And I thought it was a really interesting question, and I've written a few notes down just as like kind of like guiding points, and I'll just have to see what comes through through the course of this video and see what comes up. But for anyone that's not aware of what this toxic positivity is, it's you tend to often see it in, there's quite a lot of people that do bring things up, and they'll kind of like use the term like, oh, it's all love and light, and it all happens for a reason, and which, yeah, it does happen for a reason. However, we're not learning from the reason why it's happening usually. And a lot of the toxic positivity as well that is out there, it's not dealing with everyday stuff. It's not dealing with everyday life. And a lot of the time shit happens, in everyday life, and we just got to deal with it. But how are we dealing with it? What we're using, what techniques are we using to deal with it? Are we staying in that false positive mindset? So it's good to be positive. It's good to have I'm not saying that being positive isn't a bad thing, or is a bad thing. It's not. Being positive is good, but also understanding and having awareness of the negative is also just as powerful and just as good. Because if we turn our backs away from the fact that there is negativity out there and shit does happen, then we're constantly always living in this bubble and not really dealing with life and truth and the everyday things that we have to deal with on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis. And over time, being overly positive all the time can actually have more of a detrimental effect on you and on your mental state, on your emotional state, on your spiritual state, and on your physical state as well, because you're just covering things up. And as I was writing these notes, that was one of the things that I wrote down, was about just covering things up. And what I was showing in my mind's eye was, it was basically like putting a plaster over a severed limb. And it's not really, it'll maybe hold for a short while, but eventually it's going to give. And so there are ways and there are techniques of how we can deal with things in life, which I'm going to cover a little bit in this video. But basically what I wrote down here, and I wrote down the title of like toxic positivity, basically it's fluffing everything up. And the other note I wrote down was basically shit happens, but it's how we deal with it. Then I did a bit of automatic writing just to see what came out with regards to that. The first thing that came out was basically not dealing with the issue, not dealing with the problem. So we can either look at everything, people tend to have a duality of how they live. They either live in the duality of everything's bad, or they live in the duality that everything is good, and they're not living in the present moment. They're not living in the now. They're always in one place or the other. And that is kind of the ego. That's kind of conditioning. And it's trying to bring around an understanding and balancing of that conditioning within, which can take a long time. And for some that have been living in that mindset for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, however many years, then it's going to be a long process to try to deal with it, to try to balance out this energy. And it's the same for if you've been constantly living in the positive and not actually seeing the negative that is out there. So everything is black and white, everything is yin and yang. Everything has a level of duality and non-duality. But the more non-duality that we bring into our everyday life, the more we kind of see things from a higher perspective. We see things with more of an openness and a level of surrender from within, rather than labeling. I think labeling is kind of like a bad thing to do, really. I've just used a label there. See, straight away I've used bad, when really it isn't about being bad or good, but it's what you're going to get from it. If you label something as bad, how is that going to serve you moving forward? So we've got to be really careful, and again it comes down to our thinking. How are we processing our thoughts? What are we thinking about? How are we allowing these feelings and emotions to go through us? And the other thing that I wrote down, which comes up quite nicely to what I'm just talking about now, is basically you're covering, when you have this toxic positivity, you're covering things up with fluff. And that is not a healthy way of going about things. It's not balanced. And it can be quite, toxic, really. It can be quite toxic because you're allowing a lot of this negative energy to just remain within. You're not dealing with it. You're covering it up with things and metaphors and sayings, and trying to be always on the positive and not being present and realistic with it at the same time. And the other thing that I wrote down here now is basically you need to open something up to allow it to heal. And again, the metaphor and the images that I was shown in my mind's eye was basically when a child falls over and they scuff their knee, and after maybe a day or two, you take the plaster off, you're like, let the air get to it. Let the air get to it, and it'll dry out and it'll heal. It'll do what it needs to do. And that's very much like us on an emotional level. If we let the air get to it, if we become open with it, if we don't lock it into a paradigm or a duality of thinking, and we just have openness and oneness, it's going to heal a lot quicker, because when you have openness and oneness, you have a greater sense of awareness. You have a greater sense of clarity that is coming from within, that is coming from your very energy, your intuition. It's coming from your very spirit. Your very soul is speaking to you through your body, and that's something as well that gets forgotten about. A lot of this toxic positivity, it's always about the spirit, the floatiness, the lightness, which is all beautiful. It's wonderful when we're in that place, but it's not healthy to always be in that place. It's like when you're working with the realms of spirit and you're working with spiritual energy, or you're doing energy healing. It's good to be doing that, and it's wonderful to be in those places when it's happening, when everything is just flowing nice and you're getting a really nice feeling and buzz, and your client's just so zenned out and so chilled. That is absolutely beautiful. However, you've always got to come back to you. You've always got to come back to your body. You've always got to come back to earth, to ground, to balance. If you're always in the astral, the ether, if you're always in that spiritual realm, then you're always disconnected from the self. You're always disconnected from the now. And that is a really, really important part about this. Your energy speaks through your body. So how in tune are we with our body? So we often talk about things, if we talk about chakras, let's talk about the chakra system for a little bit. So if somebody's living a life and they have a lot of anxiety, they've got a lot of fear, they've got a lot of turbulence going on, they might have depression, they might have issues going on that realm of things, then 9 times out of 10 you're also going to have issues with your lower body. You're going to have issues with your feet, you're going to have issues with your ankles, your knees, your hips, because that is your grounding, that is your connection to the earth. Because you're unstable within your energy, that then comes out because you're unstable within your mind, which then creates instability in where you are standing, your movement, your freedom of movement, the aches, the pains, all that sort of stuff's going to come through, and it shows itself within the body. Maybe, let's say, for instance, you've been traumatized as a child, you're carrying a lot of trauma from, say, some sort of sexual abuse or something like that. Let's just cut through the crap and just say sexual abuse. And so what's going to happen there is, because this is now connected to your sacral chakra, so you're going to have sacral chakra issues, which is connected to, again, kind of lower body. It's going to be hips, reproductive organs, issues around there, water, intestines, all that sort of lower body area. Kidneys as well is connected to that. So you're going to have like those sorts of issues around that area. Kidneys as well connected to your endocrine system, so it's going to help. It's going to delay your body from sort of flushing toxins out, that we need to get rid of every moment of every day. So there's a lot of stuff going on. So when you start going into the energy system, looking at how it functions within the body, how the body then needs to deal with it. So I used to have a lot of solar plexus issues. Solar plexus is to do with confidence, it's to do with drive. I used to often feel stuck. I didn't get lost in direction. So I used to always get a lot of stomach issues. I changed my diet, I changed what I was doing, I changed my level of thinking. Stomach issues went away. Really very few solar plexus issues now, maybe the odd one or two. I'm not perfect by any means, but so it's understanding how this energy that we're working with, how it operates through us. So we have to be so aware, and we have to listen to our bodies. Our bodies are constantly talking to us and telling us what is going on. But then, how aware are you of your body? Are you listening to your body? And also, how are you talking to your body? What is the information that you're giving to your body? If you're constantly telling your body that you're in pain, or you're suffering, or you're struggling, or on the other side of the things, if you're saying that you're constantly happy, you're constantly living your best life, but you're not, you're creating conflict within your energy. Then again, it comes down to this balancing of your internal energy. So how do we deal with it? How do we heal it? How do we work on it? Again, self-analysis, awareness, balancing the ego, balancing the mind. That is a big thing, big key thing that we need to work on within this. So when we're talking to the body and we're talking to ourselves, what will tend to happen is, if you've got a really heavy ego and a very low spiritual self, what will happen is you will ask yourself something and the ego straight away will jump in, because you're so in tune with the ego. You're more in tune with the ego and the mind than you are with your actual true state, your true self, your true way of being, which is your inner divinity, your intuition, this energy that is within. When you start to change the balance, your intuition, your energy from within starts to move through a little bit more, and that comes from work. It comes from a dedicated practice of meditation, stillness, listening, mindfulness, maybe yoga, Pilates, Reiki, all these wonderful things that are designed to slow us down, because we're so conditioned to think that we need to run around and chase things and do this and achieve that, but we're not listening to ourselves. All the time we're doing this chasing, we're forgetting about us. We're forgetting about what's going on within. We're forgetting about the stuff that we've covered up with positivity and toxic positivity, and think, oh, well, that's okay. But after a while, it'll keep coming up and coming up and coming up, because we're not looking at the root cause. We're not looking at the issue that is there at hand. So self-analysis, self-awareness, balancing the ego, and learning to listen to your true self. This learning to listen to your true self, listening to your higher self, listening to your intuition, it really, really is a finely tuned craft to be able to listen to that, and to be able to tune into that, because your intuition and your higher self will give you the direct answer and the direct truth. What happens after that? So let's say, for instance, that you're in a toxic relationship and you're basically you're living every day, you're going through, but you're covering up with toxic positivity, saying, oh, it's fine, everything's okay, everything's love and light, I'm living this life because it's here to teach me something, blah, 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 and all this sort of stuff. But we're not dealing with the root cause. The root cause is that there is an issue at hand that is affecting you, that it could also be affecting multiple people around you. And if you don't start taking the steps to heal you and work on you, one, you will never get out of that situation. But also, if you don't start doing that inner healing yourself, see, this is the thing about energy healing. When you start to work on yourself and heal yourself through the various practices that I mentioned before, then what then happens is that energy and that healing transcends to the others that are around you, that are affecting you, that are affecting your very energy. And it can sometimes have that effect of just catapulting them away where they need to just be gone, or it will harmonize and balance something within them, and they'll start seeing themselves for maybe what they've been doing, who they truly are, maybe a predator or narcissistic or whatever. But again, not sticking with the labels, keeping away from the labels, because the labels once again take us back to duality. They take us back to the good and the bad. So looking at things from an openness, and once we connect and we discover that openness, this is where your truth comes from. This is where, so inside, you're in this relationship and you might sit down with yourself and your head's just full of chatter. It's full of the ego. The ego is telling you how shit life is and blah, 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 and whatever else it wants to throw at you. And because you're so in that, you're always going to get that. So that's why we need to rebalance, we need to refocus, we need to reharmonize what's going on internally, rather than just trying to cover it up with fluff and elastoplasts and things like that, because that's obviously, it's not working. When you start to look at things from a non-dualist outlook and an openness and a oneness, you start to see how things affect the bigger picture, basically, the effect more overall. And from that openness, from that oneness, like I mentioned before, because you're doing the work, you're doing the inner work, you're doing the shadow work, you're looking at yourself, you're listening to yourself, you're balancing yourself, you're reharmonizing your energy, then you start to tune into something deeper than the mind, deeper, you tune into this real deep feeling that comes from within, and that's where the answers start to come. And because of the way your intuition, your higher self works, the answers are always quick, they're always instantaneous. It's the ego that tries to stop them, it's the mind that tries to block them off. But you already know the answers. You already know, because we all have this fail-safe mechanism within us. And Bashar talks about this. Daryl Anker, who channels Bashar, he talks about this. And it's like a motivational mechanism, it's called. And we all have this within us, where we know what is going to be the right thing and what is going to be the wrong thing, and again, that brings it back down to a dualistic concept. But internally, we all know already what we need to do, and how we need to do it. It's the fear that is stopping you from doing it. So now we need to address the fear, not by covering it up with toxic positivity, but by actually looking at the fear, looking at the self, looking at the shadow. What is creating the fear? Where is the fear coming from? For a while, maybe about 2 or 3 years ago, I kept getting this overriding feeling of fear. And I'm like, where is this feeling coming from? So I used my practice. I sat down, I went into a meditation. 10, 15 minutes into the meditation, I was like, okay, so tell me, fear. What is it that I need to be fearful of? And so then the information came through that I needed to be aware of, that I was fearful of criticism. I was fearful of judgment from other people that know me on a personal or maybe impersonal level, but know me on some level. So the fear was coming from that. So I said, okay, fear, so whereabouts in my body do you reside? So I sat with it, and I was just talking all this through in my head. And I felt, again, way down in the gut, way down in the bowels. And again, root chakra stuff to do with fear, to do with grounding, to do with security. And that's where it was. So I was like, okay, fear, you have no reason to be here anymore. I'm going to allow you to leave. I don't need fear controlling my life. I don't need you here. I am more powerful without you. Okay, so this is not using it from a overly positive aspect. This is using positivity to harmonize the negativity. This is totally different. This is about bringing balance to your internal energy because of the inner work that you've already done to better yourself and to develop yourself and to actually harmonize with yourself. Once you start harmonizing and listening, the body will speak to you. It's like when you go to the gym and you work out, you're on a workout regimen, and you're doing loads and loads of weights, you're doing bits of cardio, and you've been told to only eat so many calories, and then you might be, after about 3 or 4 weeks, all of a sudden you start getting the munchies. You just want to eat everything because your body is talking to you, because it needs fuel. You need to feed it. You know, and it's exactly the same thing. You will feel exactly the same thing from it. So your energy, your spirit, your body is constantly talking to you, and it's constantly giving you information. So that in itself, just using that alone is a really powerful way to harmonize away from covering things up with this toxic positivity, as what a lot of people tend to call it in spiritual community, and actually balance and reharmonize your own energy, your own way of being, of finding that truth within you. And it's not for everyone, by the way. This is not for everyone, and it will cross your path as and when you need it. There will be a point where you'll have to come across it and deal with it. But it's deep work. It's deep work that takes time. It takes discipline, diligence, practice, and just sticking with it, sticking with the process, sticking with that healing journey. So that is kind of like, that's my views on toxic positivity, and also how we can actually harmonize and balance ourselves, just by giving you a few examples of how we can do that. We can also do that through EFT, which I'm a practitioner of. We can also do it through hypnotherapy, through Reiki, through meditation. So I'm a meditation teacher and coach. Obviously, I'm a Reiki teacher and master practitioner, and a hypnotherapist as well. So if any of this stuff strikes a chord with you, and you feel that you could benefit from maybe some guidance, maybe some healing, then do feel free to get in touch. All my links are always below in the descriptions box. But I hope this answers that question concisely and well enough for you, do comment below and let me know if this was useful for you and help to answer it. If you've got any further questions from this video, if there's any other guidance that you need or any other pointers to help you on your journey, then do feel free to ask anything below in the comment section, and I will try to make a video as quickly as I can to get the response out there. I do have a few videos in the pipeline currently, so if you want to join the channel membership, then do feel free to pay that small donation towards the channel, where you can watch my upcoming videos before they are aired. Or you can send me a super thanks to the channel as well, just to say a thank you for the information that I've shared today that may be of use and be able to help you on your journey. But until the next video, do take care of yourselves, and much love to you all. Namaste.